This is just going to be a quick video on these late model lighting upgraded LED headlight housings and bulbs for the 98 to 02 Trans Ams. Although I have a lot of work done to this car, this is probably one of my most anticipated installs, because driving the car at nighttime is awful with the stock headlights. It's almost like you don't have lights on at all. So LED headlights in these are a big upgrade. So a lot of people are doing the newer LED headlights that have the individual LED bulbs in them. They look a little goofy. I'm not really about that. So these ones have a really nice factory OEM type of look to them. So I'm going to give you a quick install video. Here in the car, we're just going to go ahead and flick the headlight switch. Raise position, back to the parking light position. Does leave the interior lights on, the fog lights, the running lights on, but not really too big of a deal while you're working on it. It's not too long of an install. So you can see here that I did install the other ones on the passenger side already. Really nice and clear, as opposed to these OEM factory headlights in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the install for this. The first thing you gotta do is just take off the headlight housing. 3 Phillips head screws that hold this black plastic housing on. Next, we've got these 4 T15 screws on each of the headlight covers that hold the mounting bracket over the headlight. So here's what you receive from late model lighting for these 98 to 02 F bodies. Package of LED bulbs and pigtails, as well as the actual housings themselves. No longer a sealed beam unit. Now it does have a nice area in the back for a nice twist and turn bulb, as I wish they were from the factory. So I waited for these probably about 7 or 8 months. They were on back order. I really didn't have a problem with waiting. I really more so just wanted that factory style looking headlight replacement. Glad I waited. It's a very nice piece. It's all metal. Seems like a pretty decent quality headlight. Doesn't seem to be cheap. So it seems like they definitely stepped up their game and made a nice headlight here. So that's good. Got some pigtails here, which would plug into the LED bulbs. They say that you can either crimp or solder these wires directly into your headlight wires, or just stick these right into the headlights, the connectors themselves. It's a little hokey. I found a better way that doesn't involve either one of those, no crimping or soldering, and it's a little bit better than just having these shoved in the end of the headlight connector. So I'm going to show you that when we get back over to the car. But these are pretty simple here. They tell you to take a little bit of dielectric grease, get it on top of the seal a little bit, just so that it makes a nice seal in the headlight housing there. And as is with most of these LED bulbs, you want to make sure that the LEDs are facing left and right, or 9 and 3 o'clock. So basically that blade of the LED headlight bulb is facing straight up and down. It's basically what you're looking for. Here, back at the car, I've got the pigtail set up to the new LED bulb. We're just going to plug it into the stock connector here. This is one of the options they give you for installing these lights, is to just insert these pigtails into the connector, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is an option. Red, there's a tan wire here for the low beam. Black is going to be ground, just to verify that the light does turn on, which it does. So there's a better way of going about that. If I unplug the pigtail from the LED light, really the only options they gave you were inserting these in there and leaving it like that, or actually cutting the wires for the headlight bulb here and splicing them into here. Luckily, the pins are the same between this connector and this connector, so you really can de-pin this connector and this one and just insert these two wires into this connector, and it works out really, really nice. For removing the stock pins, remove the white clip that holds the pins in. Just pry straight up out of the connector, and you're going to be using a small sharp object that will be able to get inside of that pin and pull it up to release the tab that holds it into the headlight connector, and the whole pin will come out of the connector. When you do this, it usually flattens the pin here. This is the actual part that holds the pin inside of the headlight connector. Just give it a little pry back up so that it's bent up, so that when you insert it into the new connector, it's going to stay there. Same thing with the other one. You're going to be prying on the side that's closest to the inside of the connector. So this is where the pin would actually slide in. It's up here, and this is the side you're going to be prying on. And that pin will come right out. Not going to need the stock connector anymore. Bend this tab up out of the way so that it will catch on the new one. Same thing goes for the headlight connector that they give you with the late model kit. Go ahead and pry both ends up off the headlight retaining. And so with this one, you just want to remember, which side is red and black. So we're just going to do one at a time. We're going to disengage the red side first. So the red side, it's again towards the inside of the connector. You're going to insert your tool and pry over, and that pin's going to slide right out. We're going to insert the tan wire, because that's our power wire, into this connector. And you should hear it snap in real nice, and it's going to be nice and engaged. So we're going to de-pin the other ground wire. And insert the black ground wire from our stock connector. Until you hear that nice click, make sure it's not going to back out. And now you just have a new connector for the new LED bulb that'll plug right into that. Now that the low beam connector is finished up, we can go ahead and work on the high beam connector. It's going to be the exact same process. The green wire is going to be the power wire in this scenario as well. Black is going to be ground. So we're just going to be swapping pins again. Very, very similar on this connector. Now that we have a completed harness, no splicing or anything else crazy needed, we can route the low beam and high beam harnesses back up through. And we can plug our bulbs in just to make sure that they're going to work. The low beam bulb I already plugged in. And we're ready to go. Installation Installation of the lights is pretty straightforward, simple. Same as just the reverse of installing them. Go ahead and just flick your lights on, make sure that they work. I have my high beams clicked on right now, so all 4 lights are working the way they're supposed to, and they're already 3 or 4 times brighter than the stock ones. It's pretty ridiculous. The other ones are pretty hard to drive around with, actually, the stock bulbs. So huge improvement. We got to do the most important part of the job, which actually there's no mention of in the repair instructions or installation instructions, which is routing of the wiring. It's a pretty big deal, because the wiring does not want to sit very nicely, especially with even just the added length of the harnesses themselves. There's a lot of room for these wiring harnesses to sit. So I'm gonna get these lights turned off and give you a better look. So the low beam bulb on the passenger side of the vehicle really can just kind of hang out. There's not too much that it can get caught up on. So I basically routed it up with the rest of the wiring that meets up with the headlight, and just zip tied it together so that it's all in one nice little bundle right here. That way it's kind of out of the way and not hitting anything when the headlight opens or closes. The high beam, however, is a little bit different of a story. It's a little bit more complicated to get it to a spot where it's not gonna hit. So I do have it zip tied to the headlight bracket up here, and then I do have a rubber clamp holding it down here as well, out of the way of all the other linkages of the headlight mechanisms. The first couple of times I ran it through, and it was smashing down on top of the ballast for the LED bulb, kind of preventing the headlight from even closing all the way. So it's really important that you get it to a point where it's not going to hit anything while it's closing. So it's going to be this side here is going to be the tricky one, having all of this wiring meet up to a place where it's not going to end up hitting anything. So I'll probably do the same thing I did on the other side and mount this ballast here with a zip tie up top, and probably a rubber clamp off of that nut right there to route that down and around. So we finished up routing the wires here. What we ended up doing for the high beam bulb is routing this ballast for that LED bulb. It's zip tied to this headlight bracket right here, just straight around to kind of keep it up out of the way. It rolls down here to a hose clamp that we installed on that one bolt and nut there for the headlight motor. So we went and just screwed it right into that so that it's routed really nicely down underneath. And then the other low beam bulb, the ballast is just kind of hanging out right here because it does need room to go up and down as the headlight goes up and down. So this one is just kind of going to hang out right here. And then the rest of the wiring, the 2 connectors for them are just zip tied up together down here to just kind of take up some of the extra slack. Your car is not going to look this way. I've got a lot of custom wiring going on down here. So you can see this is the fuse boxes have been relocated underneath of the bumper down here, because I do have a nice shaved engine bay to make room for the twin turbo setup. So it's not going to look identical, but it's just kind of common sense. Just make sure that all the wires are up out of the way, cycle through the headlights multiple times, make sure there's no weird clunking or snapping, binding going on. These headlight motors are already prone to having problems. If you start putting loads on them that they're not meant to have, you're most likely going to end up stripping out the gears inside of the headlight motors pretty quick. So make sure those wires are routed nicely out of the way. We're going to put the headlight covers back on and hopefully get the car outside so we can see these lights at nighttime.